How's it going, everyone? Session here. Welcome to a Final Fantasy XIV video. Uh, People in the community wrote down some questions for me to answer in regards to possible what-if scenarios, which I thought was really cool, about 14 as a whole. And I think the theme that I picked up on, based on those questions, people had some ultimate questions. So I kind of wanted to tackle some of those ideas that people were talking about and see kind of what their thoughts are, and then also provide my own feedback. So here we go. The first question I received was, what are your thoughts on the current reward system for ultimates, and are there anything that you would do to improve them or change them? Okay, so that's a good question, because for me, the reward system of ultimates, it's been the same thing since the beginning, which I think is still really cool. And of course there's changes being made to some of those rewards. It'll be like small, but still that they're there, right? So right now, the primary rewards for clearing any ultimate is the title, as well as the weapon of your choice, which I personally really enjoy. Obviously, it's really cool to kind of beat the hardest fights in the game and then get really shiny, cool weapons, and then be like, oh my gosh, I got the weapon, right? So it's fun. But then also, some people have, I've learned, there's folks that go around walking around with the title, and obviously, like, you got to clear it once and then you get the full credibility, right? Like, there's no difference between getting the clear once or getting it like 20 times. The only real difference is just how many weapons you can have, which is fine. So there's that. But I think that if there was an incentive to going back in and actually farming it, I think that'd be really cool. And so one thing I've always talked about is how awesome it would be if there was a multi-layered reward system for clearing ultimates like a certain number of times, because when you do savage raids, I know that you get just like achievements for doing it like 1 time, 5 times, 10 times, and there's not like an incentive push reward wise for that, which honestly, if they look into that, that'd be really cool. But I'd also incorporate the exact same thing in like an ultimate. So for example, let's say you clear an ultimate for the first time, you get the title and the weapon, which is cool, you get that, and we love those, of course. Then what I would like to have them look into, if it's a possibility, because it's a whole spiel, where if you clear an ultimate like 5 times, then you can get like you can get a different title, or the same title, but the color changes, so it's actually like it kind of stands out like a little bit more. And of course it's gonna not be related to the UI color, because like my character's name, for example, is like a faded like tan when I target myself. So if the title is the same color as that tan text, that's fine, right? But if I could somehow make it like a thematic color, so like Future True Written, for example, make it like a light blue or like a purple, and then it have it like a separation thing, I mean, that'd be kind of cool, and you can only acquire that color change by completing it a certain number of times. I know this sounds like a kind of like a what scenario, but again, I think that the idea, it kind of appeals to me. So I don't know, I was pretty curious about that, and I really enjoyed that idea when I kind of first thought about it. So now I think that you can create a better incentive besides that, but again, it's just kind of like a thought on the table, right? The other idea, and I'm surprised by this as well in terms of how long the game's been out for, and how the content's been doing its thing, but people I think have also asked about making like armor sets for ultimates, which surprisingly enough, I can't believe that there hasn't been like a thing yet in this game, So, all the ultimates are themed related to not only the weapons that their ultimates are related to, but there is also armor sets tied to it. And so I thought that would have also been like a really cool way to approach as like a scenario. So what I would have liked it to see, and I do hope that they incorporate it in the future, because I think it'd be super cool, where after a certain number of clears, then you can get like an ultimate coffer set, and then you can redeem it. And I think it would also cost like I don't know, like a totem or something, or some kind of incentive, I don't know, but there's like a way to grind it, I would say. And then essentially you redeem it, and then it's the same exact coffer set that you would get from the Savage Raids, because those exist, but they have the same color theme that they would have in from the ultimate. And then of course, if it was even more possible, that I would say is like, if you could it can't be dyeable, but it can be enhanced if you were to use it like more and more often, or if you use it like in the ultimate. So let's say with Fru, for example, there's like the ultimate Edenmore, I don't know, chest of fending, so like a tank chest piece basically, and I would say like at first it doesn't have like a glow or something, you know, and it looks very like blue and aqua-y, but it's still the same idea as the way the weapons look. But then when you start completing the content with that, then you might get like one half is like light, and then it's got like the green side glow, which is cool, and then you got the other half, which is Gaia, but you gotta like clear it again. And then essentially what you can do is talk to a vendor somewhere, I don't know where, but you know, a somewhere vendor, and then you can get like replicas. That way you can have multiple pieces of the set where it doesn't involve like the stat thing, but it's like a replica, and then you can wear the armor, and then you can kind of use it as like a glamour thing. Because that's what happens at the end of the day, right? Is like usually whenever we get past a certain point in a patch, the weapons become just more glamour than they become like useful, especially once the relics start coming out, so that becomes a thing too. And so I think that if you can create an instance like that, I mean, that would, you can easily sell me back into doing ultimates on like on a constant basis. And I think it's easy to kind of, not easy to do per se, but it's easy to get started, because again, all of the armor sets that are based on the actual raid tier, I think is really easy. The challenge, of course, is doing it for the sake of the like the story mode, because you know, like Uwu doesn't really have like an armor set per se, and neither does like Thoradin with DSR. So that I think would be a little bit different, but I think it's also, well, just as simple as to find a gear set and then just be like, or an armor set, and be like, yeah, we're gonna use that one, and then just go down the list, you know. Maybe the tome set, you know, just like a thought process. I'm not too sure yet. So yeah, you know, I thought that was like a really cool idea. That was my thought process, at least, for improving like the reward system. The other question that I received was talking about the difficulty of ultimates and how that kind of translates over time. And again, that's also like a really, really great question. So with the like difficulty in mind for ultimates, I've always felt like personally they should always be regarded as like the hardest ultimate, you know, the hardest pieces of content in the game. And I think that like to a degree that they are, but I think it's also really easy to compare some of those contents to you know, kind of ones that we've encountered previously, and then newer content comes out, and then it's kind of like, well, there goes that challenge, right? So there's that. Like for example, the like the Criterion Savage content is harder than, I would say, maybe like 4 of the 6 ultimates, like maybe. I don't know if that's true or not, but like, I mean, because I've done I tried to do 2 of them, and they're challenging, but they're also challenging for different reasons in their own as well, so there's that. But I think that like there's obviously certain ultimates that are, you know, where you don't really got to put as much effort into it, and you can get away with like a lot. And so I think the difficulty becoming like a thing in that regard should be looked into. But then also, I don't want people to be very quick to, I don't know, get like flustered by the idea of, oh, you know, Uwu was very easy back in 2024 with like whatever, and then they make like a change, and then the reward is the same. Because if they're gonna make or if they're gonna try to like return the difficulty back to the ultimate as like an example, then I wouldn't want them to do so while also creating like you know, like an incentive that makes it, you know, like lackluster. Because if you can get an Uwu weapon, for example, because like Uwu I think is like the prime example, because it's probably the ultimate, the most I think community players look into and don't really give it the respect and regard that it's an ultimate. Because, you know, it's not 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes long. You can clear it in like 13 if you have like pretty decent damage, even less than 13 if you like, you know, actually pump her like a little bit. And also the way how the mitigation and everything works is kind of like, eh. So, you know, I think that Uwu is normally maybe like 16-ish, maybe and a half minutes, some of that. But now it's, you can do it in under 13, which is scary, because certain raids, like savage raids, are longer than that. And you know, and that's just, and they still have the difficulty still put in place too, so there's that. Now, like I said, if they decide to memes, if they decide to go back and like return the difficulty, then there should be an incentive that follows suit with it. And so that's what I'd like for them to consider as like an option. So like we'll see, but again, I don't. I think it's very unrealistic that we'll ever see them like patch the difficulty in an ultimate. They'll definitely make like patches to bugs. You know, we had like, that one DSR bug where people couldn't get frozen, or you know, get hit by the ice debuff with the meteors, and so it, you know, it just didn't work at all, and so people just kind of died forcibly, and it was awkward. They had to patch that, and it was fixed, which is cool. But of course, you know, bugs. And I think same thing with like another mechanic. I forget which other fight that there was, but there was like an ice issue. But either way, though, so if they're gonna bring difficulty and something to older content, then obviously there should be some incentivized reward for it. Now, I think it's cool that there's a conversation that's kind of going about where they said that they would start bringing newer weapons for older ultimates as like an example, which is cool. But I still think that there's a possibility that they could do even more than just that. The framer kits are like a prime example of like a really cool idea, and I'm cool with that. So like, trust me, I'm a big fan of that as well. But yeah, I think that on top of getting like a reward incentive for like repeatedly doing the content, if there was an incentive for bringing back the difficulty as like a fun factor, then I think that would be also very intriguing. And then lastly, the third question I got was about like gearing, because, you know, gear matters up to a certain point, and then, you know, it kind of depends on like what the content is, but then eventually gear becomes a little like irrelevant. Although there are still people that are like, you know, oh yeah, like you want to try and get the relic, you know, does the relic matter for older ultimates that have relics? Does it, you know, does it not matter? And so I mean, I think that to kind of nip that in the bud, I think what I'd like for them to consider, not just for ultimates, but just like in the game's sake in general, is if they create a way where you can like, because gear sets are really cool in this game. Like I like the gear set system. It's good, but it's kind of hard to compensate also when, because you can have 100 gear sets, right? But you can't hold 100 gear sets worth of items in your like armory chest and like your inventory or like your saddlebag. It's like really tricky to figure that out. And so I'd like for them to figure out a way to make that something that you can better incorporate, and like fingers crossed that they do, because I'm sure that they also were like, oh yeah, you know, the 100 gear set thing is really cool, but then it's like, oh yeah, we didn't think about the idea if somebody actually made 100 gear sets. And personally for me, I have like 80 something. I'm like 81, 82, and it's because it's like I have every single job, and then all crafters and gatherers, and then I try to get best in slot, at least in a small sense, for every single class and every single ultimate possible. And of course, even for other things like Criterion or like for Unreal or whatever, you know. And so eventually it's going to matter down the road that like I need to, you know, make space for this stuff. Now, do I have space for it? No, but like I try. So for me, I would do it with like I play tank mostly, right? So I always have the best in slot that I've generated for all the ultimates with, and also have a trading for tanks. And then I kind of have like an extra couple of stragglers. Like I have like some best in slot for Dragoon, some like for Samurai, like a little for Red Mage, like that sort of thing. But even still though, my inventory is hurting, and so people kind of point and laugh at the fact that my inventory is practically full. But then they're like, why is your inventory never like free? It's like, well, because dude, I hold on to, you know, these BIS sets for ultimates. And again, like some people, they're like, oh yeah, like you don't care about that. And it's like, well, I mean, I kind of do, right? Because I want to try and be like a decent player in terms of playing the video game, and so getting best in slot is part of that experience, I would say, right? So that's part of the reason why I go for it. Now I understand, again, like people are kind of like, like I don't care, which again, like is totally fine. But if there was a system that they could make where that becomes one, it's a really easy issue to resolve, but most importantly, you can use it to travel around places, you know, because again, if I all of a sudden had to travel to Ether and I'm going in with tank gear, but then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we need you to play healer, it's like, well, I have to go back to Primal where my character's from, get the gear, and then come back to Ether. And then of course, because Ether gets locked at a certain point in the day, I can't even go back to Ether, right? So you kind of create like that weird scenario. So if there's a way to create like an armory chest system, it'll at least make it really easy to deal with like ultimates and that sort of thing. But also, I think if they did that, they could even incorporate like the glamour plate thing, because you know, I think one common question also people run into is like, why are there 100 gear sets but not 100 glamour plates? And I was like, that's a good question, because again, I think that you know, so it's a lot of quality of life things that I think that we'll be able to hopefully see over the course of time, but obviously not all of it is set in stone. So like, I don't know, but again, it's kind of like a up in the air situation. So, but either way, in terms of the ultimate though, you know, holding onto like 60 sets of gear just for a best in slot that you may or may not ever use is kind of like a lot, you know, because I would like to try to become a player that's able to flex jobs and learn how to get decent with every single job, and holding onto best in slots for me kind of helps in that regard, you know. So yeah, there's that. But either way, I think that there's a lot of things that we can look forward to in terms of the game's functionality and kind of how things play out. And so I'm looking forward to all of it coming into the future with the game. So I know that Yoshi P has a lot of things in store for the game in terms of like people's feedback and providing ideas. And then of course 7.3 is literally like around the corner, so there's so much content that we could be looking forward to, that even though a lot of it was showcased during the live letter, there's still some details that are missing from the live letter that we won't see until the patch notes, right? And again, there's a lot of also unanswered questions about what the content looks like moving forward. So I hope everyone's excited for that, because I know that I sure am. But yeah, at least as far as the ultimate stuff goes, that's my thought process on it. So long story short, TLDR, one, more reward incentives and ultimates would be cool. It's not required, but it'd be cool. Like I would like to be able to, you know, get armor and stuff like that for that, or mount. Yo, imagine like an ultimate mount. That'd be kind of fire, you know. There's that. Two, bringing back some of that difficulty, but also making sure that the reward is like worthwhile, because of course like difficulty is a thing. And then being able to gear up for it easier, or make it more easier to do. So yeah, that's my what ifs. So the 3 what if ultimate ideas, there you have it. So I hope y'all enjoyed, and of course let me know your thoughts and feedback as well. I mean, I'm sure everyone kind of has their own thoughts and opinions about how they feel about, not like with ultimates in general, but just like the game as a whole. And so I think that being able to just kind of talk about it is really fun and like engaging conversation. And obviously we're not here to be all like, oh, the game is, you know, the game is great. It just also has, you know, people have like a lot of questions about the game in general, so like I totally understand that. And so there you have it. Tune in next time, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. So thank you again for submitting those questions, and of course more questions to come. So take care.